Hi, this is Firefighter Brent Williams here with Lieutenant Sean Holzhauser from the Yarmouth Fire-Rescue to demonstrate and familiarize you with our new SCBA. It's the MSA Model G1. First off, a little bit about what this is. This is a familiarization with the G1. It is not the manufacturer's detailed training that we'll go through at a later date. Instead, we want to get you familiarized with this so that when we can begin training in a non-IDLH atmosphere, you'll have some familiarization with it. As a result, there are probably some things we won't go over in a lot of detail in the pack today, but you'll have a good understanding so you can start your training. So before we go into the pack themselves, I want to talk a little bit about the change in NFPA standards that have happened recently. And these standards apply to every manufacturer, so this isn't just MSA. First is the low air alarm. As you may have heard, our low air alarms will now go off when there's 33% air remaining in the bottle. The old standard was 25%. So that meant in our existing packs, in our Scott bottles, when they go off at 25%, you have about 1100 PSI remaining. In the new standard with 33% air remaining, that means your low air alarm is going to go off at 1500 PSI. Again, that's for all manufacturers. The second standard that has changed is the face piece lens. The old standard required the lens to be rated to 300 degrees Fahrenheit temperature. The new standard requires the lens to be rated at 500 degrees Fahrenheit temperature. So that means that this lens has to sit in 500 degrees for 5 minutes, and then after 5 minutes, have a 10-second flame impingement on it without failing. So much more rigorous standard. The third change is the communications test. Without any electronic communications whatsoever, all manufacturers have to present a manual way through the mask to communicate, right? We're used to that. That standard now is objective. It has to meet a certain decibel standard in order to pass the test. And the last change that NFPA has mandated for all its manufacturers is to have a consistent sounding pass alarm. Gone will be the days eventually when everyone has new packs meeting these standards of different pass sounds. They'll all have to have the same standard. All right, so let's get into the pack itself. Let's start with the face piece. The first thing that you're going to notice when you use the G1 face piece is it's a lot lighter than what you're used to. This weighs a little less than 1.5 pounds. And the reason is there's no electronics whatsoever in the face piece, okay? The electronics are elsewhere, we'll get to that in a minute. But as a result, it means when you want to wash this, you can totally submerge it. You don't have to worry about any electronics being impacted. The other thing you'll notice is because there's nothing hanging off the sides, there's a much greater range of visibility. When we were testing these, all the testers noted that, and I think you will too. The head harness is like you're used to. Notice that there's no buckle up top here, so nothing to press into your head, which is very comfortable. The other key thing with this mask that we don't currently have is the limits on cross-contamination. So the air comes in through the regulator, but the exhalation comes out through an exhalation valve on the mask, and we'll show you that in more detail later. That means there's no chance of cross-contamination. You're not exhaling into the regulator, which in this day and age of COVID-19 is a great benefit for us in the department. Last thing I should mention on the mask is the speaking diaphragm down here. That's that mechanical or that manual diaphragm that all manufacturers must provide. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the low pressure regulator. Face mounted, just like you're used to. But this one's a little different in that it has 7 light pipes that project a bunch of information that you'll be able to see that would normally be your heads-up display. Instead of it being in the mask, it's on the regulator. Those 7 light pipes are broken down into 4 on the right-hand side, and that's for your air. So 4 green lights means you have 75% to 100% remaining in the bottle. 3 green lights means you have, hang on, let me check my cheat sheet here, make sure I get it right, 50% to 74%. 2 yellow lights means you have 34% to 49%. And then 1 flashing red light is that 0 to 33%. If you're in the red and you have that 1 flashing light, you'll also have a flashing red light on the top of your mask-mounted regulator. The 3 lights on the other side of your heads-up display, on the left-hand side, are if your pass activates, if you have a low battery condition in the pack, and then also if your pack is experiencing thermal heating beyond its design limits. And we'll get into that at a later time. That's one of those topics we probably won't cover today. The 2 small dots in the regulator are for the amplifier that you will have on every pack. So on our current packs, the officer seats have electronic amplifiers. On every single MSA G1 that we'll have in the department, you'll have a shoulder-mounted amplifier, and these 2 dots here are the microphones for that, and we'll demonstrate that a little bit later as well. The emergency bypass is what you're used to, okay? This one's on the other side, so muscle memory, we'll have to learn a little bit about that. And then the last thing, of course, you have the hose coming in from the bottle, actually coming in from the high pressure regulator to the low pressure regulator. This hose is a little bit thicker than we're used to, and that's because it carries both air, communications, and the lighting for the heads-up display. Probably the biggest difference that you're going to experience in using this is mounting this to the face piece. Gone will be the days where you mount and turn quarter turn to click in. This one instead comes straight into the face piece and hooks up. Notice, no quarter turn, it's straight in, clicks in. At the regulator, there are 2 buttons, top and bottom. You have to depress these, not to hook up. You can just come right in and hook up. But to unhook, you have to press both buttons, and that releases. When you press both of those buttons, it also cuts off the air, so you don't have to worry about air spilling out when you take your regulator out of your mask. All right, let's move on to the shoulder harnesses. So the shoulder straps on the harness, you'll notice, are much wider than we're used to. And you'll also notice that it's got an anti-slip fabric on the back. This is so that it doesn't creep down off your shoulder. You'll also notice the X pattern in the shoulder harness here. So coming from this side to this side, this side to this side. Again, designed to make this sit on our shoulders and not fall off while we're working. I think you'll find these are very, very comfortable in use. The last thing I want to point out, and I won't rip this apart too much, but each of these straps, there we go. So you can see, I'll just demonstrate with 1 button, but you can remove these if they're very contaminated. They can go in the gear extractor and get washed. We bought extra ones of these, so if that happens, you can put extra ones on while these are being washed. The last thing I'll mention before turning over to Lieutenant Holhauser is the waist strap. I'll put this out of the way a little bit. You'll see it's pretty wide, which is great, but the other thing you'll notice is it swivels. So think about climbing a ladder, doing other work. No longer will that pack be moving separate from your body. It'll be moving with you. And then it also has a height adjustment so that you can have it sit perfectly on your hips, which, as we all know from wearing packs, you want the weight on your hips, you don't want it on your shoulders. And that's it for me. I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Holhauser.
So, when you turn the bottle on, the control unit will power on automatically. There's a familiar analog gauge that shows you how many PSI of air you have remaining. There's also a digital gauge that shows you how many PSI of air you have remaining. The background of the screen will either be green, yellow, or red, depending on how much air you have left. There are green buttons on either side of the control unit. If you push and release either of those green buttons, it will alternate between how many PSI of air you have left to how many minutes of air you have left. Both buttons perform the same function, so it doesn't matter which button you push. Once you've been on air for 3 minutes, the pack will calculate, based on the rate you're breathing, how much time you have before your cylinder is empty. After the initial 3-minute calculation, the time remaining will update every 30 seconds. The air packs we purchased for the officers' seats come with built-in thermal imaging cameras. To use the thermal imaging camera, push and hold either green button until you hear a beep and the screen changes to a thermal imaging camera. You can push and release the green button to rotate between thermal imaging camera modes. To exit, push and hold either green button until the screen changes back. Your pass device is also located in the control unit, so no more shaking your butt back and forth to turn the pass off when it goes into pre-alarm. Simply take your control unit, give it a little shake, and it'll reset it. To manually activate your pass, push the red button in the middle of the control unit. And double-click either green button to deactivate. The frame of the MSA G1 comes with built-in lifting handles. There's one on the top, rated for 1,000 pounds, and one on either side, rated for 500 pounds each. The SCBA bottle can be mounted from the top or the bottom and is held in place by the V-shaped dovetail at the base of the frame. The spring-loaded steel band prevents movement of the SCBA bottle. Press the top and bottom buttons on the latch to release the steel band. The band can also be adjusted to accommodate different size bottles, whether it be 30, 45-minute, or 60-minute bottles. The high pressure line screws into the SCBA bottle using the universal CGA connection. And because it's a universal connection, in an emergency, a Scott bottle can also be used with the MSA pack. When the bottle is turned on, buddy lights positioned 360 degrees around the pack let you and your crew know how much air is left in everyone's tanks. The universal rapid intervention connection is on the lower left-hand side of the pack. When your low air alarm goes off, an LED will illuminate the RIC connection for easy identification should it need to be used. Rather than the vibro alert or masked vibration that you're used to, the MSA G1 uses a ringing bell to signal your low air status. All electronics in the MSA G1 are powered by a single battery pack in the center of the frame. This helps lower the center of gravity, and it also eliminates the need to manage multiple batteries and multiple different size batteries across the air pack. A battery indicator on the control module will tell you how much power is left. To change the battery, the waist strap buckle acts as a key. Insert the buckle at the top of the battery and push in, and the battery pops out. Similarly, insert the battery, push in until you hear a click to reset. The regulator of the MSA G1 has 2 microphones built into it. One is for voice, the other is for canceling background noise to improve intelligibility. When the bottle is turned on, the electronic voice amp on the left shoulder strap turns on automatically. There's a button on top of the control unit which is lit blue to let you know that it's on. If you need to turn the voice amp off, push and hold the button until the amplifier beeps to tell you it's off. If you want to turn it back on, push the button again to hear 2 beeps to let you know it's back on.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
That concludes our training. Thank you very much for watching. Remember, this is only for familiarization. We'll have a much more detailed training from the manufacturer coming to you soon. Happy training, everyone.